they released Ascendancy info, which I'm very glad they did, because it seems like at the moment you are not going to be able to respec between Ascendancies. You can still respec in your own Ascendancy, but not between them. Since Sorceress at the top, and I'm probably going to start with the Sorceress, I'm going to go through these backwards. And I'm just going to do this with all of them, and hope that this works out the way I think it does. It does! Very good. First one, Monk, Acolyte of Chayula. You've got your instant mana leech, very strong. Cannot recharge energy shield, but mana leech effects also recover energy shield. That also is huge. Okay, so, like, I'm doing a Sorceress, and I'm doing my Frostbolt shenanigans. On the other hand, you've got Chayula's Gift for plus 10% to maximum Chaos Resist. Chaos Resist is doubled, which could be very good, or you could just take CI. Because you're going to have instant energy shield leech and mana leech. Seems very good. This one has no precursor node, so you can also just get that massive. Especially if they end up having stuff like Forbidden Flesh and Flame, though I guess the precursor node doesn't matter. Some of this stuff could be very good. I also wouldn't be surprised if they never do that, because some of this stuff could be very good. Another node, precursor node here, you've got Reality Rending. 23% chance to gain 25% of damage with hits as extra chaos. 13% chance to gain 50%, and 7% chance to gain 100%. So, I mean, this is effectively... let me pull out a calculator real fast. On average, what that would mean is you're gaining 7% of your damage, assuming that you can roll both of these. I mean, because I'm assuming you can roll multiple of these. You could roll that 23% chance and the 13% chance. So you'd have a, let's just do the quick math. You'd have an about 3% chance to gain 75% extra. That is the math that I am going to go with for this. Because that effectively means that you are getting 5%, 5.75% damage as extra chaos, plus 7% damage as extra chaos, plus... I don't need to do this, but I already typed it out. So this is effectively, if it works how I think it does, then you're effectively getting 20%, 19.25% damage with hits as extra chaos damage. Because this means you're effectively getting 7%. Because, you know, 7, and this is over a course of however many hits. This one effectively gives you 7%. This one effectively gives you 6.5%. And this one effectively gives you, what was it, 5.75% as extra chaos. So that's about 19% damage extra chaos. But it could be very good for high hit burst damage stuff. Like if you're looking for, I don't know exactly how poisons work. And obviously, you know, Monk, specifically this Monk, the Acolyte of Chayula, doesn't have anything that lets your chaos damage ignite. But poisons, as long as any hits with chaos damage poison, if poison is based off the base hit, which I believe they said that ailments, damaging ailments, are in PoE2 based off of the hit damage. So you could be going for a massive amount of hits just to hope to hit this 7% and effectively get a double damage poison. So that could be another use case for this, rather than just the about 20%. So here you've got Into the Breach. Creates a breach around you, allowing you to see nearby flames of Chayula. You are considered to be in a breach while this skill is active. Okay. Doesn't matter for breach rings, because breach rings are no longer double stats in breach. They are just 50% max quality. Flames of Chayula. A red flame leeches 7% of your maximum life to you. A blue flame leeches 7% of your maximum mana to you. A purple flame provides a stacking buff, granting 7% of damage as chaos damage. for 5 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. And then lucid dreaming, effects and duration of Flames of Triula on you is double. That seems like it could be insanely strong, depending on what like the cooldown of Into the Breach is. It is a skill, so you will be able to support it with support gems, which is very good to know. But with lucid dreaming, effects and durations is double, which means that if these have high enough density, you could, in theory, get 70% of your damage as extra chaos by collecting your 10 purple flames. But if you do that, you've got the red flames, which leech your max life to you. You could just ignore those, but it would make CI a little bit less of a prospect to some extent. If you're going Ravenous Doubts, consuming questions. Yeah, so if you're going Ravenous Doubts, consuming questions, you probably don't want to go CI if you're going for the lucid dreaming. But you could also take these two and just grab like the Embrace the Darkness and Grasp of the Void as a thought. Just, that's how you get your extra damage, or Reality Rending. Take these two, Reality Rending, and then, I don't know which one you'd get. You could still take Embrace the Darkness. I don't think it'd be great, though. Next, I believe this one's called Invoker, the second Monk Ascendancy. Gain 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield on equipped body armor. Gain 1 spirit for every 15 evasion rating on equipped body armor. Cannot gain spirit from equipment. I'm assuming that means other than your body armor. And then protect me from harm. Lead me through grace, protection from evasion rating also grants physical damage reduction, but you have 40% less. So, first thought. I don't know how much spirit we're necessarily going to get from gear. But, lead me through grace could be very good. Because it allows you to use better base types. Like, I don't know if quarterstaffs are going to really give you spirit. Maybe they can as an affix, in which case you would free up an affix from this because the spirit would be useless. But I remember seeing that certain items gave like 15 as their implicit, which would mean that you'd want your body armor to have some combination of stats. 150 evasion rating and 30 energy shield. That seems like a reasonable number to have for your 15 spirit. Those also seem like really low numbers. I'm thinking Invoker would be very, very good for a future aura, like aura and spirit stacking build. I say future because I'm not doing it right now, though I might in the future. Future. Lead me through grace. You're gaining a ton of spirit. So if you just craft like an evasion, and someone will probably do the math on this once we see like endgame items and how good they can get on if it's best to go pure energy shield, pure evasion rating, or hybrid to get the max amount of spirit. Faith as a choice seems kind of useless to me. Channel to recharge energy shield can overcharge your energy shield up to double its normal maximum. Channeling ends when you take damage, or your energy shield is double its normal maximum. The only thing I can think of there that would be very good is that you could potentially have skills in this game similar to, I can't remember, like lightning blades, but like temporary. So you charge your max energy shield up to some big number, which then, you get damage based on whatever your energy shield is. So you have a bunch of energy shield now. It says right there, this skill cannot be used if your energy shield is already double its normal maximum or if you have no maximum energy shield. So unfortunately, it will not work with Mind Over Matter to give you massive amounts of mana because the new, or not Mind Over Matter, sorry, Eldritch Battery. Because the new Eldritch Battery is just converts all energy shield into mana, so you will have 0 energy shield. I am the Blizzard. 10% of damage is extra cold damage. When you freeze an enemy, create chilled ground. Or I am the Thunder. I guess you could dig both. Gain 10% of damage is extra lightning damage. 25% chance on shocking enemies to create shocked ground. And those lead into And I Shall Rage for Unbound Avatar. Gain Unbound Fury by inflicting elemental ailments with hits on enemies. Once you reach maximum Unbound Fury, consume it to become unbound for duration, vastly augmenting your elemental prowess. 2 things. Once you reach maximum Unbound Fury, consume it. This is a buff, not a usable skill, by the looks of it. So, I mean, you get the skill Unbound Avatar, but it looks like you toggle Unbound Avatar on, and then every time you reach maximum energy, it's not like you can press a button to choose when to use it. It just happens. You just get your Unbound Fury. You become unbound. So that is nice on one hand, because it's like, hey, you don't have to worry about pressing another button, but it means you can't store it. So if you accidentally get to maximum Unbound Fury when you kill the last mob in a pack, well, you're potentially wasting some of your unbound time. The Soul Springs Eternal. Meta skills gain 35% more energy. Which is alone, but it kind of makes me think about this. Sunder my enemies. Critical hits ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. Seems like Invoker might be very good for like aura stacking and cast on crit. So you get Lead Me Through Grace for a ton of spirit, which lets you reserve energy for auras, but also for meta skills. You can have a ton of meta skills. And then you go for crits. So you get like cast on crit. I believe this has not changed, but crits inherently inflict ailments. So you could have a cast on crit meta, a cast on freeze, a cast on shock, a cast on ignite. I believe cast on ignite. I know that shock and freeze exist. I'm assuming cast on ignite does as well. So you take those, and then you're just casting your abilities. And those are constantly just spitting out so much stuff. Now, that does take 2 nodes. So you could do crits ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. That's very good. Or you could go into one of these 2, I'm the Thunder, I'm the Blizzard, and grab And I Shall Rage. You would not get to ignore enemy elemental resistances, but with how many spells you'd be casting with all your meta skills, there's a decent chance that you could fit some exposure in there and some stuff to lower the enemy resistances, and it wouldn't be as much of an issue. But then that would give you Unbound Avatar every time, because you'd be constantly inflicting ailments. That could be nice. The other option is instead of this, you just go up here, you get the critical hits, ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances, you don't worry about exposure, you don't worry about lowering enemy resistances, and you also grab Elemental Expression. So you'd be doing melee here. Trigger Elemental Expression on melee critical hit, which creates a fiery explosion, an arcing bolt of lightning, or an icy wave of projectiles. The chance for an explosion is proportional to your strength, a bolt proportional to your dex, and a wave proportional to your int. And with Lead Me Through Grace, Evasion, Energy Shield, you'd probably be mostly doing dex and int. You'd probably mostly get in bolts and waves, which is probably the best. I imagine this is similar to the Wild Strike explosion, bolts, and waves. And I tried to make a Wild Strike build work. I'm very bad at making builds, so, take everything I say with a grain of salt, but especially this. The bolts seemed very good for clearing, and so did the waves. The explosions seemed okay for single target, so it would be very clear heavy. Next, Gemling Legionnaire. Gemling Legionnaire has been nerfed already. Because from what I remember, Crystalline Protocol used to give 16% to quality of all skill gems, and Thaumaturgical Infusion used to be per 3 socketed support gems of each. From just like the teasers they showed in the trailer. So, can't say I'm surprised. With the amount of maximum support gems here, plus the 3 additional skill slots, you would have been easily able to cap all of your stuff with these at 3. With them at 4, a little bit harder now. But anyway, here you've got your 10% quality to all skills, +1 to level of all skills, and 30% less cost of skills. Skill gems have more attribute requirements, but attribute requirements of gems can be satisfied by our highest attribute. That's a possibility. My thought on this... Oh, let's read the rest of them. 4, you've got 3 additional skill slots. 5, you've got 2 copies of the same support gem in different skills, because currently, I mean, without this, you can only use 1, so each support is only 1. 6 is the plus to maximum reses per socketed support gems. 7 is attribute requirements of gems can be satisfied by your highest attribute. 8 is the inherent bonuses from intelligence, strength, and dex are doubled. From what I remember, stats are very, very strong in PoE2. I'm going to look this up real fast just to see if this is correct. Okay, I was hoping that the PoE2 DB, that's where I got most of my information from before this Ascendancy stuff. I was hoping it would have that. I'm pretty sure they showed it somewhere, but I can't remember where. I cannot remember where they showed it, and it does not seem to be available on PoE2 DB. But I remember seeing something that the stats, like the base stats and whatnot, were very, very strong in PoE2. Which, even if, to be fair, even if they're just the same as PoE1, they wouldn't be as strong, but enhanced effectiveness could still be very good. It could be very good for a stat stacker, though usually stat stackers use some unique item or some specific rare mod that gives you, like, 2 to 5 cold damage per 5 dexterity. And then you get, 2,000 dex, and suddenly you've got just massive flat cold. But the 10% quality of all skills and +1 to level of all skills, I don't know if support gems are going to have levels. I'm assuming they will, but they might not. But the quality only being to your skills, we'll have to see what quality is. There could be some skills that just have amazing quality. Like, they've got quality on them that just does some crazy stuff. But in that 10%, like, there could be a skill. I mean, to be fair, this is based on the mercenary, who's all about the crossbows and grenades and stuff. So there might be some, like, grenade skills where it's like, the quality is every 10% quality you fire an additional projectile, which means that this is +1 projectile to that skill. That could be really strong. I don't know how good levels are. Levels tend to be very strong, so +1 to all your levels is good. I feel like Advanced Thaumaturgy is going to be okay early if you've got a lot of stats, the 30% less cost of skills, but eventually you'll have, like, some mana leech, and that won't be as much of an issue. So I'm thinking if the inherent bonuses from int, strength, and dex are very good, then you could potentially go, 1, 2, 7, 8. If they aren't, I would personally probably do 1, 2, 4, 6. Maybe if they are 4, 6, 7, 8, because the quality and level is very good. But additional skill slots plus the ability for all your support gems, like, you just socket a bunch of support gems, you can get super tanky. Your int, strength, dex giving you extra stats. I'm thinking 1, 2, 4, 6 is going to be if I do a Gemling Legionnaire at some point. We'll see. I mean, it won't be this beta period. It won't be, because I'm doing Sorceress. But I'm thinking 1, 2, 4, 6, not necessarily in that order, but probably, honestly. Because I feel like the 3 additional skill slots and the maximum resistances aren't going to be too useful before endgame. We'll have to see, whereas the quality will immediately give you quality. The +1 levels will immediately give you the +1 levels. Witch Hunter. Witch Hunter is basically the only class that I didn't care about from the, like, not leaks, but from the previews they showed. So let's see if it gets any better. 20 passive skill points become weapon set skill points. That's kind of nice if you're doing weapon swap stuff. Already, that's kind of cool. Just free Culling Strike and Decimating Strike. Culling Strike kill normal enemies if their life is at 30% or below. Magic enemies at 20, rare at 10, unique at 5. Thresholds are checked before the damage of the hit is applied. Got it. That, pretty good. I mean, it's Culling Strike. Culling Strike's nice. Decimating Strike. Hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% of life before the damage of the hit is applied. I could see that being good. I'm pretty sure previously, like in the reveal, they talked about it being a chance. Just like a chance to do 30%. So the removing between 5% and 30% could be good. Could be very good, but I don't think that would be a long-term thing. I'll have to read what these other ones do. Enemies have maximum concentration equal to 40% of their max life. Break enemy concentration on hit equal to 100% of the damage dealt. Enemies regain 10% of concentration every second. They haven't lost concentration in the last 5 seconds. Basically, keep damaging enemies. What is concentration? Enemies have less cooldown recovery rate the lower their concentration is, scaling down to 50% less. So it slows enemies down. I think No Mercy here is actually what's going to make concentration useful. The cooldown recovery rate could be good against bosses, and it does seem like Witch Hunter is a very boss-killing heavy idea. But deal up to 30% more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration. So as long as you keep dealing damage with hits at least every 5 seconds, Decimating Strike says hits against full life enemies remove health. Break enemy concentration on hit. So I don't think Decimating Strike would deal damage to concentration. But the 40% of their max life, basically once you deal the first 40% of an enemy's max life, as long as you keep damaging them at least once every 5 seconds, you're dealing 30% more damage. And they are casting their abilities and whatnots much slower, which is it's an okay defensive layer. It's not bad at all, but it's not amazing in my eyes. We'll have to see, because again, I'm thinking from this PoE1 perspective, where it's like enemies don't really have like really good attacks and stuff that they use, except for like bosses, which is kind of the point from what I've been saying this whole time. Kind of the point. This seems to be a very boss-heavy ascendancy. Obsessive Rituals. Grant skill Sorcery Ward, but you gain 50% less armor and evasion rating. Sorcery Ward passively manifests a protective barrier which takes elemental damage from hits for you until depleted. The barrier instantly recharges to its full value a short time after it stops taking damage or is fully depleted. So this is Bastion of the Elements from Elementalist. Pretty strong defensive node. The 50% less armor and evasion rating is tough to some extent, but it does make it, especially with this one, 50% increased effect of Sorcery Ward, and Sorcery Ward recovers 50% faster. Basically, as long as you're not trying to face tank, this makes you not immune, but this covers elemental damage. The fact that you have 50% less armor and evasion rating does suck, for sure, but you don't really have to worry about elemental damage, again, as long as you're playing the game and not just trying to face tank everything. And then, 10% chance for enemies you kill to explode, dealing 100% of their maximum life as physical damage. Chance is doubled against undead and demons. So that's kind of like the clearing node. So I'd have to say, if I was going to do a Witch Hunter, I'm not huge on bossing, I'm going to be completely honest. So I'd probably take 6, 7, 8, and then I could also take 1, 2, or 4. Don't really care about concentration if I can't get the No Mercy, so it would be 1 or 2. The free Cull would be really nice for clearing. So I'd probably go 2, 6, 7, 8. Would probably be my Witch Hunter idea. I don't know what skills I would use or anything, but 2, 6, 7, 8. Infernalist. Okay. I mentioned this earlier, but I did peek at Infernalist just because I was looking at Blood Mage because I thought I might do Blood Mage. I won't. But I thought I might, so I peeked into Infernalist just to check. And I looked at some of the nodes, but... So you've got your little tree over here, your little offshoot here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 20% of cold damage taken as fire, 20% of lightning damage taken as fire, and 20% of physical damage taken as chaos. So, with a CI build... Never mind, I'm looking at the 2, 3, and 4. I was going to say, with a CI build, this is just 20% of physical damage. You just get 20% physical mitigation. But you can get the Bedat's Will, Gaze, and Hand to reserve 25% of your life for +2 Spirit for 25 life, +2 Mana, this is +1, for 6 life, and +2 Energy Shield for 8 life. And then you've got 5, Demonic Possession, which gives you Demon Form. This is what I was planning on doing, potentially. Shapeshift into a demon, vastly boosting the power of your spells. You gain Demon Flame every second you remain in demon form, causing your life to be lost at an ever-increasing rate. Revert to human form if you reach 1 life, use a skill that isn't a spell, or reactivate this skill. With the 6th node, Master Darkness, maximum of 10 Demon Flame. So, that lets you take 5, 6, and cap off. Just cap off the damage you take, and you can permanently have Demon Form up. Then you've got Pyromantic Pact. Maximum mana is replaced by maximum Infernal Flame. Gain Infernal Flame instead of spending mana for skill costs. Take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage when Infernal Flame reaches maximum. Lose all Infernal Flame on reaching maximum. 10% of Infernal Flame is lost per second if none was gained in the past 2 seconds. Really depends on how much maximum life and energy shield as fire damage. While not on low Infernal Flame, all damage from you and allies in your presence contributes to Ignite, Chance, and Magnitude. Pretty sure this is what MBX said that he was going for. Was some Ignite Infernalist stuff. Seething Body. While on high Infernal Flame, you and allies gain 20% of damage as fire damage. I'd imagine as extra fire damage. Not converted to fire, would be my guess. You've also got your Infernal Hellhound. Summons a reviving Infernal Hellhound which ignites enemies near it. The hound takes a portion of damage, 20% of damage from hits before you. And Grinning Immolation. Become ignited when you deal a critical strike, taking 15% of your life and energy shield as fire damage per second, but you deal 30% more critical damage bonus, so just 30% crit multi. Which could be very good, especially if there is stuff similar to PoE 1, where you can get, like, unaffected by Ignite. Something like that. Unaffected. Grinning Immolation could basically just be like an inherent fulcrum. That'd be an interesting one. Though it says become ignited. It does not say ignite yourself. So I don't know if that ignited... I mean, it's 15% of your life and energy shield as fire damage. If there is Ignite spread in this game, like if there is ways to spread ignites, it would have to be on a piece of gear. It could not be a skill gem, because Grinning Immolation is not a skill. But you could do some, PoE 1 Fulcrum-esque stuff, where you crit an enemy to ignite yourself, taking 15% of your life and energy shield as fire damage per second. Oh, it would have to be... Because, yeah, again, you're not igniting yourself. So even though you could stack a ton of life or energy shield to make that a very big ignite, you're not igniting yourself, and most of the ignite spread stuff says ignites you inflict, or if it's a skill, like if it's ignite proliferation, it's like ignites inflicted by this skill are spread. So you might just, in this case, just stack fire resistance and take the 30% crit bonus. But still, the Altered Flesh does let you become quite tanky. 20% of cold and lightning taken as fire. We'll have to see if we have like a Taste of Hate as well, or you can get a bunch of cold taken as fizz. Or fizz taken as cold, rather. So then that cold would probably be then 20% of that would be converted into fire. I do like the idea of Pyromantic Pact. I love the idea of Demon Form. Yeah, I wonder if there is a max Demon Flame. Other than, obviously you can take Master Darkness for only 10 max. I wonder if there's a way to max it, like if there's a max before. Because if there's a cap before, then yeah, Mastered Darkness would be very strong early. It would stop you from dying. But it might be a thing where if it's a cap of like 30, we might just be able to out-heal that. There might also be something you can do where you take like Altered Flesh, Bedat's Hand, and get some item or thing on the passive tree where chaos damage does not bypass energy shield. And then you just pop demon form. Don't take Mastered Darkness. You take Altered Flesh, Bedat's Hand, and maybe Bedat's Will, just for spirit, for extra stuff. And then you pop demon form, and when it brings you down to 1 life, okay, who cares? You're reserving half your life anyway, so it will be off. But then you just keep popping it, getting your boost, once it takes you down to 1 life. And you still want a ton of energy, or life regen. Causing your life to be lost. It says your life to be lost, not your energy shield. I'm assuming that it does not our Righteous Fire and that it takes away your life. If it takes away your energy shield, this idea goes straight out the window. But everything else says life and energy shield. This just says life. This says life and energy shield. This says life. So you could use it similar to Invoker's Unbound Avatar, where you're just popping demon form whenever it's up, using it for a bunch of damage, and then it drains you down to 1, but your energy shield is protecting all that. Again, you need a way to make sure that chaos damage cannot bypass your life. That would also make demon form useless with CI, so I'm thinking now that that's probably just a wording mistake. Causing your life, probably also energy shield. Maybe not, though. It is demon forms, and demons are known to suck your soul or something. I don't know. Blood Mage. Blood Mage is another possibility for something I could do in the future. So, you have to take Sanguimancy, which grants you life remnants and skills gain a base life cost equal to the base mana cost. Drinks the blood of your enemies to restore your life. While active, enemies you kill have a chance to spawn a life remnant, and critically hitting a target spawns a life remnant every few seconds. Picking up a life remnant grants you life, which can overflow maximum life. Very good. So here's my thought for how I could potentially use this build. I don't have the image anymore. I mean, I do, but it's just somewhere. I don't remember where I saved it to. But you use the elemental skill. Here, let me just go find it, actually. Wow, I don't even know how I managed to type that in that poorly. But, you take, yes, you would be doing cold damage, and you would be doing Biting Frost. Biting Frost, I'm not going to put this up on screen, sorry, says, supports any skill that hits enemies, causing them to critically hit frozen enemies, but consumer their freeze. Cannot support skills that consume freeze. That's why I'm kind of concerned about using that with Cold Snap, by the way, because Cold Snap doesn't necessarily consume freeze, it shatters an enemy, so not entirely sure, might end up just doing Ice Nova. Supported skills consume enemy freeze to guarantee a critical hit. So, you take Sanguimancy because you have to. You take Gore Spike, 1% increased critical damage bonus per 40 life, but you don't have to care about Sun to the Flesh. Base critical hit chance for spells is 15%. Who cares? We're guaranteeing kills. This is ignoring bosses. You're probably not going to be freezing bosses too often, but you still could have this linked to like a high damage thing, so when you do occasionally freeze bosses, even if they don't get permanently frozen, they still have the freeze debuff, consume it for a massive crit, you're stacking life. Now, that is 1, 2, which means we have 2 more spots. I would love to go around here and get Crimson Power. Gain energy shield from equipped body armor as extra maximum life. And 25% of life lost from hits is prevented, then that much life is lost over 4 seconds. Free Progenesis. Very, very strong. But my other option is to go 2, 10% of spell damage leached as life. Very strong. Don't care about blood barbs, and in that case, I might still take Grasping Wounds, just because it's strong. 25% of life is taken as 4 life from hits, is lost over 4 seconds instead, especially with Spell Leech, but I could also take Curse's Hat Infinite Duration. I don't know. Because, again, because Gore Spike would be absolutely necessary. Critical damage per 40 life. Crimson Power, we'll have to see if Crimson Power is worth taking. I'd have to find some other source of Spell Leech, which could be kind of tough to find, some other random source of Spell Leech. And I would have to find... I'd have to find out how much Energy Shield and Endgame Body Armor is giving you. Because if it's only giving you, like, 240 Energy Shield, that is 6% critical damage bonus. Not worth it. But if it's giving you 400 Energy Shield, and suddenly that's 10% crit damage bonus, just from your body armor, not including modifiers that it has on it, Crimson Power could be worth finding your source of Spell Leech somewhere else. So that's my potential thought. We'll have to see. Pathfinder. Pathfinder. I love PoE1 Pathfinder because of poison proliferation. Here we go. So on your point 1 here, 50% more flask charges gained, and life flask effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. Life flask effects do not queue. So that's the same as the Pathfinder node. Basically, very, very strong, almost constant healing. Whatever the duration on your life flask is, you just press that button once. Though there doesn't seem to be anything here, just on a quick glance. There doesn't appear to be anything here based about giving you extra flasks. That might be something on the skill tree that you have to work towards. That might not be in the game. Contagious Contamination. Most damaging poison on enemies you kill is spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. And double the number of poisons you can inflict on enemies, but 35% less poison duration. The most damaging poison... What is the PoE1 Pathfinder? Sorry, can I have the good wiki? They were trying to give me fandom and then also the old outdated wiki. So you have Master Toxicist. Poisons you inflict during any flask effect have 20% chance to deal 100% more damage. When you kill a poisoned enemy during any flask effect, nearby enemies are poisoned. How exactly does this work? Poisons inflicted by this effect is unaffected by your damage modifiers, and instead copies the DPS of the strongest poison debuff on the enemy killed. So that is the same. Wait, sorry. Double the number of poisons you can inflict on enemies. What's the base? I imagine it's at least 2, because if it was only 1, they would probably just say you can inflict an additional poison. Doubles the number of poisons you can inflict on an enemy? Oh, it might be that 1 is a default. I haven't looked at the skill gems. It seems like they're supposedly... there are other ways to get plus. Like, there are support gems for chaos skills that give you plus to your poison stacks. I can check that right now, in fact. Okay, yeah, multiple poisons. Supported skills can poison enemies an additional time, and that's at base level, so potentially you could get even like 2 on that. In which case, it could go 1 to 2 with that, doubled to 4 with this node. But that would be 35% less poison duration and 30% less poison duration, so that would be very short poisons. But if you're hitting a lot, you could apply up to 4 poisons. A base poison duration is 2 seconds. So, base poison duration, you'd basically have like a 0.9 second base duration. And there may be ways to increase that. There probably are ways to increase that. Assuming there's at least double the duration on the tree, you can basically get you can get back up to your 2 second duration poisons, but you can apply up to 4 of them only the most damaging poison spreads, but if you poison 5 enemies around a rare, and then all of them die, each one of their most dangerous poisons applies to this rare, and it can apply up to 4, so that's still very, very strong. Especially with the concoctions. Poisonous Concoction. Consume charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed chaos attack damage in an area. Poison inflicted by this skill has more effect. So, let me read the other ones, and then because I don't really care about the other ones, to be completely honest. Fulminating. Consume charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed lightning attack damage in an area, and inflicts lightning exposure. Shattering is the same but cold. Explosive is the same but fire. Bleeding. Consumes charge to throw unarmed physical damage. Bleeding has more effect. But what we're worried about here is Poisonous Concoction. Poisonous Concoction. We can have a bunch of stuff that, like, you know, you poison a bunch of enemies. This attacks, dealing unarmed chaos attack damage. We don't have access to this skill gem right here. It is an attack, but, so you probably have to have a martial weapon equipped. You probably can't have a wand equipped. But you can just go for stats. And Widow Hail is confirmed to be in the game. So you can do Widow Hail with some insane quiver. Like if there's +1 attack projectiles, boom, Poisonous Concoction, Widow Hail, now it's at least +2, if not more. Big defenses with stuff like that. Poison dot multi and dot multi, if those still exist on quivers. Double it with the Widow Hail, Poisonous Concoction, because it does unarmed attack chaos damage. So whatever the attack on your weapon doesn't matter, so Widow Hail is perfect for Poisonous Concoction. And then Traveler's Wisdom, 5 passive skill points, always good. 30% less movement speed penalty when using skills while moving, and your speed is unaffected by slows. There was something I looked at, like a unique or something. Your speed, where I was talking about literally just this. Your speed is unaffected by slows. Let me go see if I can find the unique. Inventory, uniques. Again, PoE.db.tw. Yeah, okay, so Widow Hail can supposedly roll from 150 to 250, so if you get even a 200% increased bonuses gained from equipped quiver, a +1 turns into a +3 projectiles. I think it was a unique. Thought it was a unique. But I don't see it here. Maybe it wasn't a unique. I thought I remember seeing something that I was like, oh, this will be very, very good. I guess also Silver Charm could just work. Your speed is unaffected by slows used when you're affected by a slow. Let me check the gems. Maybe it was something, it was like a buff or something. But I remember seeing something, oh, I guess not. I don't know what it is, but I thought I remember seeing something that was like, I was like, oh, this would be really good if there's any way to get unaffected by slows. So I thought it was something that was basically like, gain 20% move speed while you're chilled or something like that. Or maybe that was just some shit I made the fuck up. Now that I think about it, I think I saw your speed is unaffected by slows and thought, oh, if there happens to ever be a unique that is like this. Yeah, so that's just me being an idiot. Never mind. Anyway, Poisonous Concoction with Contagious Contamination and Overwhelming Toxicity. And then you've only got 1 point. 50% more flask charges gained might be necessary early for the mana flash, so you continue to throw the Poisonous Concoctions. But this seems to definitely not be a one-skill game. So you might do like you kill stuff to get a bunch of mana flasks, and then you unload Poisonous Concoctions. So you might end up taking Connected Chemistry just to... Am I stupid? I started this Pathfinder thing by saying, damn, it looks like there isn't anything that gives you more flask charges. Anyway. But you might just go for the passive skill points. 5 passive skill points could be very, very strong, because the tree looks like it could be very, very strong. Deadeye. 30% chance that if you would gain frenzy charges, you instead gain up to your maximum number of frenzy charges. And then that leads into benefits from consuming frenzy charges from your skills have a 50% chance to be doubled. If I remember correctly, Charges no longer give inherent bonuses. Instead of giving inherent bonuses, they are exclusively used to power up moves. Like, they're exclusively used to power up spells. So let me go to gems, skill gems, and look at frenzy charges. What are some spells that use frenzy charges? Barrage, for example. Ready a volley of arrows, empowering your next bow attack to repeat multiple times. Consumes your frenzy charges to use to add additional repeats. That's on me for reading it wrong. Buff empowers your next bow attack to repeat an additional time, plus an additional time per frenzy charge consumed. 1,440% of repeated skills attack time is added to this skill's cooldown to a maximum of 30 seconds. So that would be something like you have... Rain of Arrows is just on the screen, so I'm going to just say Rain of Arrows. You have Rain of Arrows, you just cast it, and then Avidity gives you a bunch of extra frenzy charges, like you stack up to your max frenzy charges. Even if 3, there is no way to increase the max frenzy charges. Okay, 3 frenzy charges, which means that you can then use Barrage. It consumes it. It would repeat 4 times, the additional time from Barrage, plus 3 extra times for frenzy charges. So you use Rain of Arrows, it shoots 5 times, with a 50% chance to shoot 9 times. Could be very, very good depending on the repeats. My only thought with that is that the repeats might take time. Oh, hello. I'm going over Ascendancy classes right now. I'm doing them in reverse order because Sorceress is at the top. Right now I'm thinking of weird frenzy charge stuff with using Barrage, which could potentially give you 9 casts of a spell. Or not a spell, but of an attack. So I just said Rain of Arrows because Rain of Arrows came up when I searched Frenzy. But let's look for any other bow skill. Electrocuting Arrow. No. How about Detonating Arrow? Detonating Arrow. Channel to build up power before firing off a burning arrow. Arrow will detonate on impact. If those stages work with Barrage, you could potentially fire 9 detonating arrows at max power. Oh yeah, Gemling Legionnaire seemed interesting. I think that depending on how good quality of skills are, Gemling Legionnaire could be very strong. 10% quality could be very good, especially like... I don't know, so I'm just throwing this out there. But Gemling Legionnaire seem to be based around crossbows with the other mercenaries ascendancies. If there happens to be a like grenade skill that has like 10% quality, grants 1 extra projectile. Okay, so you get 2 extra projectiles at max quality, assuming 20 is max. But then you get an extra 1 for that 10%. Yeah, it does seem like it very much buffs itself. So when it is weak, the buffs aren't giving it much because it's only buffing itself. But when you get very strong stuff, it seems very good. Yeah, and the only reason I mentioned that is because I'm just trying to think of like strong quality. I'm also not a fan of the crossbows personally. I'll probably try them out once because I'll try out every class at least once. But my thought was just that projectile attacks, whether it be the grenades or any other crossbow things, are the most likely to have quality that grants them extra projectiles, and then an extra 10% quality could be an extra projectile. Anyway, this Frenzy Charge stuff seems really good, especially now that charges don't give innate bonuses, so consuming Frenzy Charges is what you want for them to do. Eagle Eyes, no accuracy penalty at distance. That'll probably just be strong early. Eventually you'll have just so much accuracy it won't matter. You've got your point blank and your far shot, 20% more damage, depending on your distance from enemies. Point blank, you want to be close. Far shot, you want to be far. Which leads into endless munitions. Skills fire an additional projectile. You're always going to want that. If you're playing Deadeye, you want the extra projectile. Called shots for an additional mark, especially with all the meta gems, seems like it's really good. And then Gathering Wind's Wind Ward is probably going to be exactly how it worked in PoE1. Everyone takes Gathering Winds because you get 3% increased skill speed and 15% increased evasion rating up to maximum. That's basically just 30% skill speed. No one takes Wind Ward. But yeah, Legionnaire does look very strong. The 3 additional skill slots plus all of the support gems that, like, for each number of support gems you get maximum resistance. Already nerfed though. In the original like release that they showed, from what I remember, it was 1% maximum to each of the elemental resistances per 3 socketed support gems. And now it's per 4, which makes sense. With only 3, it was very, very easy from just my very basic, calculations. It would have been easy to cap your max res. Compare that with a 24% chance to fire 2+ projectiles. Compare what? The additional projectiles here? Or are we talking about the Gemling Legionnaire stuff? Because my Gemling Legionnaire stuff about quality is pure speculation. I know nothing about what the quality is actually going to be. In the skill tree, there is a node. Oh, there is? I have not looked at the skill tree at all. I've looked at a couple of the keystones, so I know stuff like Mind Over Matter and Eldritch Battery are going to be probably very strong for like my actual build that I'm going to be doing with Sorceress. But I'd imagine, yeah, 24% chance to fire 2 additional projectiles. I mean, on average. I mean, I don't really care about skill tree spoilers. I just don't want any boss spoilers. So, I mean, the thing about skill tree spoilers is that I'm going to log into the game on December 6th at 2 p.m. EST, and I'm going to immediately press P. And that opens up the skill tree, at least in Path of Exile 1. I have to hope it does in Path of Exile 2 as well. And I will spend probably my first hour of the game just looking at the skill tree. I will launch the game, I will log in, my character will be sitting there on the beach or in the woods or wherever you spawn, and I will be staring at the skill tree, trying to find out what will be useful for my build plan. So stuff about the skill tree, don't care. I just don't want any spoilers on like bosses or content, stuff like that. But yeah, Deadeye seems to be very similar to Deadeye in PoE1. Very strong. Extra projectiles, you've got marks, you've got tailwind. The frenzy charge stuff seems very strong. I think my general idea would probably be I go 1, 2, 4, 5. I would, tailwind would be great. But the building up a ton of frenzy charges and then consuming them to shoot out like massive rain of arrows or tons of chaining projectiles, stuff like that. Warbringer? I think this one's called Warbringer. I did not look at this one at all previously. Got Anvil's Weight. Break armor equal to 10% of hit damage. Okay, so that's just easy. And then you can also break enemy armor below 0. A ton of charge nodes in the skill tree. Good, good. I do love charges. I'm glad they don't give inherent bonuses. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those nodes give them bonuses, but I mean, 1, 2 here just seems very strong. Break armor equal to 10% of hit damage dealt. You can break enemy armor to below 0. Seems like you just don't have to worry about armor too much as a Warbringer. Grant skill Encase in Jade. You gain a stack of Jade every second. You can use the skill to consume all stacks of Jade to grant a buff that absorbs all damage from hits up to a maximum based amount on the amount consumed. While encased, you cannot move or perform actions. Vol Arctic armor, basically. It's not cold based, but it seems like that's Vol Arctic armor. And then Answered Call. Grant skill Ancestral Spirits. Trigger Ancestral Spirits when you summon a totem. Oh, this is Totem Ascendancy. Each of your totems will summon an Ancestral Spirit minion to fight for you. If the totem that summons the minion dies, the Ancestral Spirit will too. And you can do 20% of damage from hits is taken from your nearest totem's life before you. Okay, little defensive buffs. Friendly's Training. Gain 40% base chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value. Blocking's good. And Turtle Charm. 35% less block chance. You can block damage from all hits while shield is not raised. I'm not going to lie, I don't know exactly what the shielding stuff means. Right? can you... Because, like, if you have block chance, but they said that when you've raised your shield, you guaranteed block, but it builds up your, like, stagger meter. So, can block damage from all hits while shield is not raised. If you're without this node, if your shield is not raised, can you only block attacks? Do you have to raise the shield to block spells? Is that what they mean? I don't know. I'll have to eventually do a block build to find out. Warcaller's Bellow. This is the one thing I did know about the Titan, or the Warbringer. Corpses in your presence explode when you Warcry, dealing 25% of their life as physical damage. Not entirely sure how strong that is, but ignore Warcry cooldowns. Suddenly, that's very strong. Especially, let me check out the Warcries. Whoops. Actually don't know anything about the Warcries in this game. So, gems, skill gems. Warcry, Ferocious Roar, is an AoE shapeshift bear. Okay, that is shapeshift into a bear and trigger Warcry skills. Oh, I'm learning cool stuff about Warcries. Plus 0.6 seconds to total use time if not already a bear. This seems like it's going to be very good as Druid, but potentially very good as anyone else. Triggers socketed Warcry skills. Socketed skills deal increased damage with increased AoE, and attacks exerted by socketed skills deal 64% increased damage. So are those going to trigger sequentially, or are those going to all trigger at the same time? Either way, here's the actual Warcries. Infernal Cry. Forms a Warcry, taunting nearby enemies to attack the user and empower subsequent attacks. Consumes all endurance charges to empower additional attacks. Enemies in the Warcry area are destabilized and will combust on death. Empowers the next melee attack you perform, an additional 1 per endurance charge. 20 power attacks gain 25% of damage as fire damage per 5 power up to 100%. Okay. Never been huge on Warcries, but it seems like you can automate a ton of Warcries. Oh, there are only two Warcries? Warcry? And then Seismic Cry, which taunts and knocks back nearby enemies. If a heavy stun enemy is hit, your next slam does an additional aftershock. And it exerts additional attacks per endurance charge. Okay, not huge on Warcries, so honestly I'm probably not going to do too much with Warbringer. Like I said, I will I'll try out every class at least once, every Ascendancy at least once, at some point during my time playing PoE2. Yeah, there's just 2. My only issue with Warcaller's Bellow here is corpses in your presence explode when you Warcry. But it seems like for the most part... actually, I'm thinking. For the most part, you'd want to taunt the enemies so that you can have more Warcry power so you can get better buffs. But it could be something where you, like, kill half a pack. Taunt, you get the big power from all the enemies around you, but then the corpses explode, killing the pack. And then you can head over to the next pack, kill half of it, Warcry, and rinse and repeat. We'll have to see. I think that Warbringer will get much better as they add more Warcries to the game. For example, if they add, like, Corrupting Cry to the game, the one that just inflicts corrupting blood on all enemies that are affected by the Warcry, that could be very strong. Ooh, I need to check some other of the trigger. Cast on melee kill. Gains 30 energy when you kill an enemy with a melee hit. Triggers all socketed spells and loses all energy on reaching maximum energy. 10 maximum energy per 0.1 second of base cast time. I have an idea here. So it's 10 energy per 0.1. So basically, every time you kill an enemy with a melee hit, you gain 0.3 seconds. Infernal Cry has 0.8 seconds. Seismic... Okay, so they're both 0.8 seconds. So you need to kill 3 enemies with melee hits, which could automatically trigger an Infernal Cry, which helps out with that. So you use, say, like, Cleave. I don't know if Cleave's in the game. Let me check real fast. Okay, Cleave's not in the game. I'm trying to find a single attack. Okay, cool. Bone Shatter's in the game. Attacks enemies with a melee strike. The strike will cause a heavy stun on enemies that are primed for stun. There's a lot of combo stuff there, but let's just say you Bone Shatter, kill 3 enemies, which gives you 90 energy for your cast on stun. You need 8, or your cast on melee kill. You need 80 to trigger a War Cry. So you trigger Infernal Cry or Seismic Cry. If you're doing Bone Shatter, probably Infernal, but if you're doing a Slam, it could be Seismic Cry, which will detonate the corpses of the 3+ enemies that you already killed, guaranteeing the clear on a pack. I think that's probably my best thought for what you could do with Warcaller's Bellow right now. And then ignoring the Warcry cooldowns, it does not say it gets rid of them, it just ignores them. So you would still need to get 3 kills on enemies, it wouldn't just be constantly casting them for free with melee stun. Titan. 50% more armor from equipped body armor is just very strong. 20% chance for slam skills you use to cause aftershocks, which are bursts of area damage that occur after the initial impact of the skill causing them. If not otherwise specified, it deals the same damage in the same area. And then every second slam skill is ancestrally boosted, which is 20% more damage in AoE. Seems just good for slams. I'm not a huge on slams in general. I used to love Sunder. I was one of Sunder's biggest defenders back when it was good, and then I abandoned it the second it wasn't. So 4 and 5 here is very interesting. Carry a chest, which adds 20 inventory slots. That is 0 player power. For 2 Ascendancy points, 0 player power, but it gives you access to Hulking Form. 50% increased effect of small passive skills. That is so good. That is extremely strong. Potentially worth the 4 points on its own, especially with... Let me see if I can find them. There are items. I don't know if the PoE has them. It does have them, basically. Alright. Well, I'll be here ranting. See ya. But yeah. Right here. 50% increased effect of small passive skills. And then there's the time lost. There's the rubies, emeralds, and sapphires, which you can just socket into jewel slots. But there's also time lost rubies, emeralds, and sapphires, which have radiuses, which affect the small passive skills. So you could affect the small passive skills, and say one of your time lost sapphires gives you 2% attack speed. Okay, cool. No, it doesn't. It gives you 3% attack speed per small node it affects. Say it gives you 4 max life. Nope, 6 max life per small node that it affects. These time lost stuff with Hulking Form could be extremely strong. The downside, of course, is no player power. Oh, well, here's Mysterious Lineage for 15% more maximum life. So you could just go 1, 4, 5, 8, and you will be very tanky, and you just do so many small passive skills, and you get so many buffs that you just, you just have your passive skills granting you so many stats, and life, and defenses, and attack speed, and crit, and everything. I don't know if any of them will give you crit. But they could. Normally, the small passives are, they're small buffs. Actually, they could give you crit on the way up to a crit node. You won't have to worry about stat requirements for the most part, because each one will be getting 50% more, 15% more maximum life. You could also do Crushing Blows and Rising Strength. Your hits are Crushing Blows. Crushing Blows cause a heavy stun on enemies that are primed for stun. Normal enemies are primed for stun when they have at least 40% heavy stun buildup. Magic enemies are 60, rare 70, unique 80. So, and 40% more damage against heavy stunned. So you could also just go 4, 5, 6, 7. You wouldn't get any of the defenses. I feel like Hulking Form is just too strong. It's very similar to basically the Adorned. It's only 50%, but, when Adorned existed and people were just constantly, stacking so many, blue gems, magic gems. I think that the time lost jewels with Hulking Form very strong. Obviously, the 40% more damage against heavy stunned enemies. Hitting enemy builds towards heavy stun based on the damage dealt. Different enemies have different thresholds and durations. Players cannot be heavy stunned. While an enemy is heavy stunned, they cannot act and count as immobilized. Physical damage and melee damage buildup cause 50% more heavy stun buildup. These bonuses are multiplicative. So you could just be going with big hits. I mean, especially, what was that gem that I literally just looked at? I already forgot. But, yeah, Bone Shatter. Upon causing a heavy stun, it creates a shockwave, dealing a large amount of damage. So, crushing blows, guaranteed. I guess Bone Shatter doesn't need the crushing blows, so you could go with something else. I mean, the Seismic Cry would probably be useful. Staggering Palm. I love the fact that it seems like unarmed it might actually be, like, viable in this game. I mean, unarmed was good, but you had to have very specific stuff, either face breakers or one with nothing. Is that what it was called? The Cluster Jewel? Now we're on to Sorceress. I've looked at Chronomancer. There aren't a ton of things with a ton of cooldown, unfortunately. So, unless you're going to try some weird Sorceress stuff with that bear thing, whoops, which I don't think is going to work quite yet, because there just aren't that many skills. There aren't that many war cries. The Ferocious Roar gets plus... oh, no, this wasn't the one I was thinking of. I was thinking of Barrage. Because it adds 1,440% of repeated skills attacks time to the skill's cooldown to a maximum of 30 seconds. So you could do Frenzy Charge stuff with Barrage and Time Snap. And just be constantly throwing out attacks. That could be very strong. There's also, I think, Hammer of the Gods is what it's called. Yeah, Hammer of the Gods is a 24-second cooldown. 1,300% attack damage. Basically, I feel like Hammer of the Gods or some Frenzy Charge Barrage stuff are basically your only options for Chronomancer right now. It'll be better in the future. But that's 1 and 2. What about 3? Time Freeze. Seems like it could be very strong, but you need to go through Temporal Rift, which probably... It's an okay defensive skill. Time Freeze just seems fun. Every 12 seconds, gain 50% more cast speed. That'd be useless, because... I mean, a Barrage is technically a spell, but its cast time is 0.7 seconds. It really doesn't matter. You need to be doing bow attacks. And Hammer of the Gods is an attack, so it has an attack speed, not a cast speed. So 5 is fairly useless for just about anything you could use Chronomancer for right now, unfortunately. 6. Enemies in your presence are slowed by 20%. Okay. Pretty good defensive layer. Especially if you have bonuses against enemies who are slowed. Circular Heartbeat, 30% of damage taken is recouped as life, and recoup effects instead occur over 4 seconds. Pretty sure the default is 8. So Chronomancer does seem fairly defensively strong. You take like Circular Heartbeat, Rapid River, and... I guess now and again to Unbound Encore. And then you go for Hammer of the Gods. Or something. With Barrage. Or Cluster Grenades, maybe. They've got a 10-second cooldown. It really seems like Hammer of the Gods is your best option. The War Cries have kind of long cooldowns, but that doesn't really matter. If they add more stuff with high cooldowns, it could be very, very strong. But as it stands right now, I think Chronomancer is not great unless you're doing Hammer of the Gods. Which... with like weapon skill points and stuff like that, you could do Hammer of the Gods for big damage with a big like two-handed weapon offhand, and Barrage main hand. So you like build up Frenzy Charges, big Barrage that just like does so much damage, but oh, it gets a massive cooldown, and then you weapon swap over to your massive hammer for a big Hammer of the Gods, and then you pop your cooldown refresh and you can immediately do it again, I guess. And then my favorite, the one I am actually doing, Stormweaver. So, first things first. What do we got? I'm just going to go over, go over the basics of my idea for a character. Frostbolt fires a slow-moving, piercing projectile that leaves a wake of chilling ground, deals cold damage, and explodes on colliding with terrain. Cold Snap and Ice Nova can both be casted on a Frostbolt. Cold Snap shatters a frozen enemy, dealing a large amount of cold damage in a small area. Can be used on a Frostbolt to detonate it, causing Cold Snap to trigger on all frozen enemies near it. So if it turns out that my Frostbolts are consistently freezing large chunks of enemies in a large area, I'll probably go Cold Snap. If not, Ice Nova. A Nova of Ice expands around you, knocking back enemies based on how close they are to you. Casting Ice Nova, targeting near a Frostbolt projectile, will cause it to originate from the Frostbolt instead of you and cause more freeze buildup. There's a potential that I do all of these, where I do Frostbolts and cast Ice Novas on them with colds. Like this is new. This is something I just thought of right now. I thought of a lot of different ideas, but Frostbolt, cast it, either self-cast or by some other means, cast Ice Nova, which will be intended. The Frostbolt and the Ice Nova are intended to freeze enemies, and then have a cast on freeze setup on the Cold Snap. Because Ice Nova does not consume the Frostbolt. So I throw a Frostbolt out, Ice Nova it in the middle of a group of enemies, the Ice Nova expands from the Frostbolt, big freeze buildup, targets all of that, my cast on freeze casts Cold Snap, the Cold Snap detonates the Frostbolt, deleting all the enemies in the area. That is my basic idea, something along those lines, with Frostbolts and Ice Novas and Cold Snaps and potentially Trigger Gems. So, which one of these are good ideas? Well, I can already tell you right now, 6 and 7, targets can be affected by 2 shocks, 50% less shock duration, and all damage from hits can be used to shock chance. Could be okay, but honestly, no. We are definitely going 8, 9. 8, you have Arcane Surge, which is 10% more cast speed and 20% more mana regen. And 9, Force of Will, 1% increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per 15 max mana. That's right, we're mana stacking. So, we have Arcane Surge and Force of Will for mana stacking. What does that leave us with? That's a damn good question. That leaves us with 2 points to do whatever we want. Okay. Idea. Heart of the Storm, 40% of elemental damage taken recouped as Energy Shield. That could be okay to recoup Energy Shield. Keeps you a little bit more defensive. But I'm already using Mind Over Matter, which makes it so that all damage, if I remember correctly, I'm fairly certain this is correct, all damage taken is taken from mana. Mind Over Matter. All damage is taken from mana before life, but 50% less mana recovery rate. A little bit unfortunate, but I do have Arcane Surge, bunch of max mana, so that more or less counteracts that. I still probably want to get some Mana Leech if possible, but I think they said that Mana Leech is going to only come from attacks, so I might need to find other ways to get some extra mana regen, or just stack even more mana. Now, why do I say no Heart of the Storm then? Well, because what I'm probably also going to do is Eldritch Battery, converts all Energy Shield to mana. That is very strong, because all my Energy Shield, which normally would be taken before life or maybe with as Chaos, who cares, is converted into mana, which mana gives me extra effective Arcane Surge. Plus, with Archmage, which I believe Archmage is 5%. Spells gain 5% of damage as lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana you have, which also works really well with Cold Snap, because it's 5% of damage, which I'm assuming also spells cost an additional 5.35% of your maximum mana. Tough. But I'm assuming that it's 5% of their base damage, which is why I want Cold Snap to be my skill of choice. Because Cold Snap has very, very high base damage, so it being my damaging attack. Which means Heart of the Storm is useless, because I will not be having any Energy Shield. Unless there is a way to get recoup effects. Nope. The only things that have to do with recoup that we know of right now, I'll check this out later, is 40% of elemental damage taken recouped as Energy Shield. Don't care. Recoup effects instead occur over 4 seconds. Don't care. And 30% of damage taken recouped as life. As for mana, I am looking and it looks like... Yeah, basically, the only thing that would make me take Heart of the Storm is if there was a node or an item or something along those lines that made it so that energy shield recoup effects applied to mana. In which case, it would be very, very, very worth taking it. But I don't know. So where does that leave us? We're definitely taking 8 and 9. By the way, Archmage already gives us a bunch of lightning damage. That's why I don't really need Strike Twice. Maybe the second one. But exposure you inflict lowers the affected resistance by an additional 20%. That is quite strong. Because I am going to have a bunch of stuff casting, I might as well make it so that Ice Nova inflicts lightning exposure. Why not cold exposure? Because, we'll have to see, but Archmage being 5% extra damage as lightning per 100 mana. I don't know how realistic this is in PoE2, but that means with 2,000 mana, which in PoE1, 2,000 mana is nothing. But PoE2, the numbers might be a little smaller. But that means with 2,000 mana, I have equal parts lightning and cold damage. As long as I don't take percent increase cold. Like if I take, 15% increase cold damage. But even then, it might be the same, because it doesn't say spells gain 5% of base damage. It says spells gain 5% of damage as lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana. So I'm thinking, with 2,000 mana, 2,000 max mana, my spells will be equal parts lightning and cold. Any mana above that, which also mana is my main defensive property, so I'm going to be wanting a lot more. Any mana above that means I will be dealing more lightning damage than cold damage, so I probably want lightning exposure. Tempest Caller and Rain Dancer could be good if I was going for crits. I am not. If I was going for crits, I would probably be doing Blood Mage with Gore Spike. And what else is there to say? Right, so that means I'm taking, very likely, I'm taking 8 for Arcane Surge. I am taking 9 for increased effective Arcane Surge per maximum mana. And I am taking 1 for exposures you inflict, lower the effective resistance by an additional 20%. So what are things I'm not taking? I'm not taking 10, because I will not have Energy Shield. I do not need elemental damage taken and recouped as Energy Shield. I'm not taking 2 and 3, because those are elemental storms on crits, and I am not doing that. So that leaves me with 4, 5, 6, 7. Which, actually, I only have 1 point, so it leaves me with 4 or 6. I know I literally just said I'm not taking 6, because targets can be affected by 2 of your shocks. I don't need that, because I don't need Shaver of Storms. I don't. But, I'm talking really fast. I probably do just take Strike Twice, because targets can be affected by 2 of your chills. Your chills reduce active speed by up to a maximum of 35%. So I technically could get 70% action speed reduction. Or 2 shocks. And shocks are, as long as they're the same as in PoE1, shocks are increased damage. Shocks are increased damage. So applying 2 of those, less duration sucks, but Arcane Speed gives you 10% more cast speed. My current estimate, like my base estimate, is at least 2,000 mana. At least 2,000 mana for this build to even be viable. Which means that I have 133% increased effect of Arcane Surge. Which means... Sorry, I did that wrong. I was like, that doesn't seem right. Which I have... which means that my Arcane Surge is 1.33 times more powerful. It's, which means... So this isn't exactly what it is, because it's +1. Because the base effect is 100% is cast speed, 130, let's just call it 130% increased effect, which basically means that its effect is 2.3. Oops. Which means that I actually have 23% cast speed, and that's if I have 2,000 mana. Now, this is absurd. It's not going to happen, but it's 14,000 might be a bit much, but it's relatively easy to get 10,000 mana in PoE1, which would give you 70% more cast, 76% more cast speed, and 153% more mana regen. I don't know how realistic 10,000 mana is going to be in PoE2. I just do not. But keep in mind, it's not just mana. I'm using Eldritch Battery, so it needs my mana and energy shield combined to equal above 2,000. And I'm just going to look at unique items, because those we have stats for. Actually, we might have stats for base items as well. Let me check this. Energy Shield. A Crystal Focus. Oh, okay, well, I mean, let's look at this. A Hexer's Robe, a level 11 body armor, has 42 energy shield. A level 6 Focus has 15 energy shield. A level 30 Hybrid Gloves has 22 energy shield. Level 5 Hybrid Boots have 4 energy shield. Level 30 Hybrid Boots have 15 energy shield. And I'm going to check some unique items to see if there are any high-level uniques they've shown off. Okay, here's one. A level 52, which they've shown items that have level 90 requirements, so this isn't really all that high, necessarily. But a level 52 Hybrid has 109 energy shield as a unique. And that's 85% increased armor and energy shield. And that has some bonus mods. Like Life Leech can overflow maximum life. Also has 25%. So sometimes they put these on bad bases when they have fairly strong, they'll like overflow there. When they have fairly strong modifiers, they sometimes put them on bad bases. But I'm thinking I could easily get 2,000 mana, and then I'm doing equal parts cold and lightning damage. I think I can fairly easily get I think I can fairly easily get 4,000 mana. In fact, I'm going to do something real fast. I am going to look. I'm going to watch the endgame content reveal video again. And looking at the endgame, here's Ascension Trials. Okay, maybe not. But this is a build which is showing off seemingly, like, it's showing off the Ascendancy stuff. It's not necessarily showing off the endgame. Oh, let me look at an actual endgame. Ah, they removed the numbers. They were smart about it. They don't show the numbers on life and mana, the endgame. But at the Ascension, they do. Ascension Trials, for one clip, there is one clip where they show a character in Sanctum that has numbers. This character has 465 life. This character has 521 energy shield. And this character has 318 mana. Now, I can assume, based on the fact that they are showing off Ascension Trials, do not think that this character doesn't, they don't show up for very long. But if they're showing off the first one, that would mean this is in Act, like, 3, I want to say? Which, if that's the case, and maybe it's not, but hopefully they're not showing off the last one here. That would be a bit disappointing to me personally, if this was the last one. But all that energy shield would actually get converted to mana. So this person's already got, in effect, 839 mana. 839 mana, seemingly pretty damn early in the game. Granted, they have 163 spirit, but it seems like a lot of that might be coming from their equipment. They only have 6 minions summoned. Doesn't seem like it'll be very end game. Okay, I'm putting this on screen, and we're going to be studying this image. Oh, let me get it on screen. Okay. Get to see my little icon there. So this is the image I'm looking at. From what I can tell, this is the only image. Do I have this in a higher quality? I do. My monitor's 1080p and I'm recording in 1080, so that's all we get. This image appears to be the only image throughout where they show mana, spirit, life, and shield numbers. They also have honor here, but the honor is just your life and shield. Your life and energy shield combined. But like, nowhere else do they show numbers. You can see as I'm scrolling through this, no numbers, no numbers, no numbers. Oh, I saw more numbers. Okay, so that's more of an endgame number that I can see. So, I mean, look at that. This is not a mana build. This is clearly a minions build. This is clearly a minions build, and they have 873 shield and 1,991 mana. So that is easily 2,700 mana. This does seem to be a fairly endgame build, because this is talking about the endgame trials. But they're not focused on mana. They're not focused on energy shield. They're focused on seemingly minions and whatnot. So this character already has 2,800 mana, effectively, if you're using Eldritch Battery. So 2,800 effective mana converted over to here. 2,800, let's pull that calculator back up. 2,800 divided by 5. Nope, sorry. It's 5%. So 2,800 divided by 20. 140. So I'm already gaining 140% of my damage, my spell damage as lightning with Archmage. With the Archmage buff. Very good. And then also 2,800. And again, this is not a build focused on mana. This is seemingly a build focused kind of heavily on spirit, I'm assuming, from the 557. It's got a decent chunk of life, but I won't need to worry about that. I'll take it, but I'm mostly going to be focused on mana, especially because of how Mind Over Matter works now. But divided by 15, then divided by 100. So that's my cast speed. I'd have 28, almost 30% extra cast speed with this setup. And then 57% extra, or more. Those are more, by the way. It's not including all the other buffs that I could get other ways. Basically, the point is that I'm very excited. And we've got some good endgame numbers on a non-mana stacking character. And I can assume that if this character has 3,493 life, it's going to be relatively easy to get that much energy shield as well. I'm thinking my 10,000 number wasn't that far off. It could be relatively easy to get 10,000 mana. That won't be hard at all. And then I will have massive cast speed, damage, and mana regen buffs. The mana regen to counteract Mind Over Matter, and also to counteract the fact that each of my spells is going to cost at 5.35% of my mana to cast. Oh. So that's the plan. That's the plan. Is to do some Archmage stuff with cold, probably Frost Bolts that I self-cast Ice Nova on. Ice Nova gives them big freeze build-ups. And with Archmage, because Archmage is a buff, it is not a skill gem that you have to suck it in. Archmage is a buff that reserves 100 spirit. Spells gain 5%, which means that my Frostbolt and Ice Nova will also be doing lightning damage, which means that they can already shock, which with the other Stormweaver node gives me double shock, which is probably going to be the one that I end up taking, is the double shock. Probably going to go Arcane Surge, and then Arcane Surge effect per mana, and then double shock, and then bonus exposure, but I might do double shock, then Arcane Surge effect, then the mana, then the exposure. Exposure is definitely last, Arcane Surge is first. The other two can get swapped in between there. They seem to be mostly showing off. Oh, do we have more numbers? No, that is not more numbers. I'll leave that there and thought it was more numbers. Okay, then they're talking about supporter packs here. They should not have showed me numbers. It just reinvigorated my belief into what I want to do. They didn't order. This person didn't pay attention to chaos damage. So yeah, that's the plan. Frostbolts, which will Shock is their biggest part with their Archmage lightning damage. They will shock. And they are a catalyst for Ice Nova. Ice Nova, I will cast on the Frostbolt to big AoE, apply the second shock, and freeze enemies. And then I will probably have a cast on freeze setup with Cold Snap, which will delete the Frostbolt. It will consume the Frostbolt, but it will cast Cold Snap on every frozen enemy in the area, shattering them all and blowing them all the fuck up. There we go. I've thought more about it. I think that's my plan. 2 more days.